So Sean was out with Tommy Hughes as well, so we're going to go straight to that video now, and Tommy will join us for questions after.
And we're on Hughes Family Farm, and I'm joined here by Tommy's, just to talk about your farm. So,
thanks very much, Sean. Yeah, we're an arable enterprise, myself and my dad and my brother. We've been farming this land here for a good number of years, and we've recently, I suppose in the last 5 or 6 years, made the transition to no-till. So we establish all our combinable crops with a no-till disc drill, and we've moved more recently, I suppose, into companion cropping and cover cropping, making sure the soil is always covered. So,
can I ask you then? A lot of people get confused between cover crops, companion crops. What would you see as a companion crop?
Well, this field itself is actually a good example here. Now we've put in peas along with our winter cereals. So you can see the peas growing up there now, and hopefully that will those will go along as a companion, but I don't actually intend to try and harvest them, I suppose.
You're still looking for that one core crop, and then...
Yeah, the wheat would be the core crop here, and the peas are to maybe assist some way in reducing weed pressure and alleviating some of the need for maybe early nitrogen. And also it'll hopefully help reduce disease pressure. I think you find in nature, when you have a monoculture, nature tries to fight against you with some bringing in disease. So this will hopefully alleviate some of that for us. And then cover cropping is something a bit different. It's probably something we started sooner in our journey. It's where between our main crops we will try and have a cover. So I do have some other examples. Maybe we can look at them too at some point. But it's we've things like oats and peas and buckwheat, and some small seed mixes to go over winter and ahead of a spring crop in the rotation. So it does it harnesses all this solar energy that otherwise would go to waste, and it also stops a lot of nutrient runoff. And just keeps the soil biology fed, because ultimately the soil biology will die off. I believe it's within about 6 weeks if there's no green vegetation. So I treat while we've no livestock on the farm, as I mentioned earlier, we don't really have animals to worry about as such. But I treat the soil biology and the worm life, etc., as our livestock.
Okay, and I suppose that's one of the areas you've moved into, this whole area of soil health. And is the direct drill was that the start of that for you?
That was definitely the catalyst. Yeah. We had years ago we had gone down the route of reduced ploughing and certainly trying to avoid inversion tillage, and we made the transition then to no-till, while we didn't really know or fully appreciate what we were getting ourselves into, because it's not as easy as it sounds to just immediately stop. And we probably had unknowingly prepped ourselves well for it, because my dad was always a very big proponent of a good rotation. So we would always focus on first wheats, and then we would rotate our break crops between those first cereals. So while that had been to the fore of our farming strategy, we probably didn't understand maybe all the benefits of that from a biological perspective. We also had then gone through probably 15 years of spreading organic manures on the soil, which was helping maintain what was there and avoid us mining the soil for all our nutrients. In more recent years as well, I think we've tried to compost those manures as well and avoid just raw manures, because I do think that they have certain effects on soil biology too.
And there is a benefit of reduced volume going out from a cost nowadays.
Yeah. Handling it in the yard is the headache though that I get given out to for.
And tell me, this is in terms of, we'll say, your crops now. You mentioned companion crops, and you're moving it away from monocultures. So what would be a typical cereal mix for you now?
Well, for example, this wheat here now is, I think it's either a 4-way or a 5-way variety mix. I just have to double check the notes, but so that in itself, I suppose, while it's not companion cropping, it's variety mixing, and it does help reduce disease pressure. We've seen that on the yield monitor. It does have an influence. and the companion cropping, as I said, the peas. There would also be, in some cases, we've put in buckwheat. Some things that winter kill are quite good because I don't really have to worry about them coming in a winter cereal, coming to harvest. And look, if a small bit comes, we can deal with it in the spring if we need to, quite simply. But I do think that it reduces the need for some of our chemical controls, and obviously that has some bearing on cost. I don't really go around counting it in that sense. I try and just look at it from the biological positives as opposed to what I try and look at it from a broader perspective. So I do think, the peas are one. So there's other crops where we began, that field over there, for example, is oilseed rape, and we began our companion cropping journey earlier in oilseed rape because I think it suits the plant and the husbandry of it to have overwinter companions. Whether you bring them to harvest or not is not it doesn't really matter that much, I think, because most of them find their way, although we did have one famous example where we had clover growing up through the canopy of the oilseed rape coming to harvest, which was a bit of a pain. But in general, I think I don't think I'll grow monocultures again if I can avoid it.
And you mentioned clovers there, and I take it they were there for fertility building. Are you able to reduce your main, we'll say, normal artificial nitrogen now with cover crops and growing soil biology to an extent that you're less reliant on the artificial?
Certainly, I've noticed if you have a legume in an overwinter cereal, there is an influence. There's less of a requirement, I think, for early nitrogen. It's more anecdotal than scientifically proven. I've seen where we've had wheat or barley after beans that the volunteer beans keep the crop greener. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And the other situations where it's worked, just trying to think. Certainly companion cropping, something like oats with beans works quite well. I think there's certain relationships between soil biology that we don't even fully understand yet necessarily, but I think maybe the oats does some scavenging for some of the nutrients that the beans like, and vice versa.
Yeah,
so
that communication between crops.
Yeah, it could be in the mycorrhizal network. I'm still learning.
Yes, and I think we all are. I think soil biology and soil health is relatively new, particularly at farm level, and it's only coming out of a lot of places like the States in the last 15, 20 years.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the no-till gives the land a chance. Like before we went no-till, we were all plough-till, and we had multiple passes sometimes between the plough and the one pass. So we were even at one point discussing putting another power harrow on the front of the tractor. So it was all
battered like hell.
Yeah, and it was becoming, maybe we didn't even realize it, but it was becoming more and more. It wasn't getting easier; it was getting more. We were spending more money on diesel and tools and iron in the soil and horsepower in the engine. So whereas since we've gone the other way, there's certainly been a decrease in the energy consumed and the effort required, which is huge.
Yeah, and I think probably nowadays we're starting to see that as becoming an important issue. And I think also farmers are becoming maybe less time available, or they're more time poor anymore. So that's a big thing to have to consider as well when you're planning.
Absolutely. I think when we were doing it the old way, we certainly would have had at least one man full time with us, with myself and my dad, during the sowing season. Whereas now, we've probably avoided that in most situations, and it certainly does have a bearing because we haven't been able to get one. While we'd like somebody, it's very hard to get people in the current climate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Moving along, I see trends in agriculture change, but one of the big things, I suppose, at the moment now is maybe the opportunities for, and I think there's huge opportunity in Ireland to grow, we'll say, crops for human consumption as opposed to focusing on predominantly fodder crops. You still have fodder crops to supply, and that's not an issue, but surely to God, we must be looking at the idea of growing beans, peas and other crops that we could get more money for farmers if we sold them for human consumption.
Yeah, and I think the more money aspect is one angle, and I suppose it would be a more self-centered angle from the farmer's perspective. not to say that's not important, but I even think just from a food security perspective,
Yes.
I think it would be fantastic if we have a fantastic country for producing food, and there's no reason why we shouldn't try a lot of different avenues.
But is there a myth out there that we cannot do that, that we don't have enough sun to grow crops for human consumption?
There's definitely that. I don't know whether it's a myth, but we've grown milling wheat here in recent years, and we've tried some heritage varieties of wheats, and it is possible to produce millable quality for flour making bread. For bread making flour, and it's definitely something that we can investigate more, because we lost a lot of. Even if you drive down to the local river, the Nanny River, you can drive along it and you can see the amount of mills that used to be on it.
Yes. We were always doing it 100 years ago or more.
There was food produced here before it became so. I don't know. Maybe globalization had the influence where if we weren't the expert at growing it, that we were no longer sort of considered as part of that supply chain.
So, what, in your opinion, as a farmer growing and in this area, what do you think could work?
Certainly beans and peas, and I think they're a fantastic addition to any rotation. I think around here, while there's a lot of root vegetables and that as well, but in the cereal world, people tend to focus on wheats and barleys, and I think a very underused break crop would be beans and peas.
And are they the same? Because I heard somebody once say, that knows more of this than me, that they're a different bean for human consumption than but they're all they're all faba beans, as far as I'm understand it.
Yeah, and I know that ours in the past have gone for human consumption. Now they've been probably exported for that, but it is a market that I'm interested in trying to get, investigate and learn a bit more about, because I would hope that we'd have some quality that could be serviceable in a market, particularly if it's for processing, maybe to use in plant-based protein, and there's certain areas of the market that require a lot more of that. So perhaps Irish-grown protein could be used, and I think I know we have some beans this year that I would hope may be possible for that grade. Now, finding the people and finding the market is going to take a little bit of time, and that's probably where we need to focus some energy to develop those out.
Because there would have been, I don't know if it's still, but I know some of the lads in Base Ireland which would have grown peas for bachelors in the past.
Yeah. I suppose.
And I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but
I think they would be. Yeah. It tends to be down in around the Thai and Carlow.
Okay.
I don't know if too many have done it around here in recent years. I think traditionally peas were considered a difficult crop to harvest, and around here sometimes we have a tighter window, so maybe that's why it naturally didn't happen as often. But I would consider peas a great companion crop with something like barley, and it could be separated post-harvest.
Is that maybe the missing link? Because I suppose, in a way, if we talk about something like growing peas for human consumption, is it easier for the farmer just to bulk sell them to a processor, but to make additional income, he probably needs to sell them in lower volumes, and he needs that cleaning equipment or that processing equipment?
Yeah, the cleaning equipment and the handling, even just management post-harvest. Like, I know if I was to grow them for that, I would probably want to grow them with barley to keep them standing, and to hopefully reduce the need for some chemical inputs if I could avoid some disease sprays, for example. But I know that the post-harvest handling, for example, the separation, that's an expensive piece of equipment, and you need to have space and time and energy.
And probably a group of farmers working together to maintain that, because
that might help. Yeah. But again, I suppose it's something that we traditionally haven't. We need to investigate more. Really.
And probably need a bit more research in that area at farm level, I think.
But definitely it could work. And the peas are being grown here, so I don't see there being any natural stumbling block towards going into that. I know there's also farmers selling some of their oilseed rape for cold press.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's a decent business, and this into the country particularly, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's another one that can be possible, and obviously oats. Then there's a lot of contracts for oats for consumption too. So we would have sold some oats over the years down those avenues as well.
So and we're not dissing fodder feed, but I think that's the secondary element of it. For me, it's about increasing income, across the farms that we can do it. And like you said, food security, two really important
Well,
elements.
I think if you have two opportunities, if one doesn't come off or maybe the season wasn't great, you still have a fallback. And I think it builds more business resilience if you can have different opportunities and different avenues to try, because if we're all tied into maybe selling into the one industry, and if international, the war in Ukraine has an impact, or if whatever comes next has an impact, we could be all, we could have a big impact to our business, to our bottom line. So it's important to have different avenues that you can try and sell into.
Yeah. Okay, before we go, we're going to look at some of your beans in storage, but we are, aren't we?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll do a little bit of digging on the soil.
Yeah.
I just pick a random spot.
Yeah.
A bit of stone. That would happen. No?
How many millimeters of rain did we have in October?
About 120.
Yeah, it's coming off lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Like that. This field was hard tilled before we went no-till. Like that. That was not what you'd find behind the plough. You know?
It'll be layered. This breaks up very easily.
You used to say when you started ploughing here first that you could plough one length of this field and it would stay in nearly one slab the whole way.
Yes.
Now it is good wheat grown ground, and when we broke it down, it would produce a good crop, but it was hard worked compared to what it's like now.
And it doesn't feel too after all that rain.
Yeah, it doesn't feel saturated.
Yeah. And there's a few earthworms after heading there for.
So here we're just looking at a companion crop in with our winter oilseed rape. So the oilseed rape was actually home saved, and we put in sunflowers, peas, vetch, 2 types of clover, and buckwheat. As far as I remember, I think that's everything. But
so we've sunflower.
Let me see the sunflower. The peas are the ones coming around here.
Yeah. It's amazing how they just almost use the other plants around them to scaffold it off, isn't it?
And there's a buckwheat there out in flower, so it'll winter kill shortly. First bit of frost comes, it'll die. We have the Phacelia there. That's a
Phacelia.
fern. Let me see if we can find a sunflower.
There's more sunflowers there.
Yeah, and I actually saw a stray bean over there. Must be from a previous crop at some point.
So a great mix.
Yeah, and a lot of these will naturally winter kill anyway, but it's certainly the biology. I don't think the oilseed rape on its own has a fantastic relationship with soil biology. I think it requires a little bit of diversity in its canopy to try and bring that. Support that mycorrhizal network and some of the other relationships between different plants and the biology, microlife in the soil. So it's certainly looking well. Like I know the buckwheat will fix. I think it's pea. The buckwheat fixes, and then obviously the peas will fix a little bit of N. So hopefully it'll.
But will you have to terminate them at some stage then, or will you allow them to come?
I would imagine the peas will terminate themselves over the winter. They were sown very early. This was all sown in early to mid-August. So I think the peas will get too mature by the time winter comes that they'll die off themselves. Same with the sunflowers. Yeah. Same with the buckwheat. Phacelia could come. I see there's a vetch there. It's a sort of a, and then. Yeah, most of it'll take care of itself, and we can deal with anything else in the spring then if we need to.
It looks brilliant.
Yeah.
I have to say, it looks a great field.
Quite a cheap establishment. Now it was kind of like everything with oilseed rape. It's a little bit of a roll of the dice sometimes, so it's nice to see that the dice was rolled and it worked out.
And is the home saved seed a big challenge for you to do?
Not really in oilseed rape terms. It's a little bit of cleaning required just so that it doesn't block the drill with little pods or anything. But no, we found that it's successful enough for us. Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, we'll go to the shed. We're here in the shed with the beans. And they look great. They look lovely and clean. Now, I wouldn't necessarily be an expert. What would you be looking for in beans? But
It's just, I suppose, the colour of the skin is quite telling, and it's you'd also sometimes have maybe damage from pests like bean weevil or maybe nematodes, where there'd be holes in the beans, or maybe damaged beans where they'd be holed out internally. But these ones seem quite nice, and I think it was an early harvest this year, so it might have helped, and they've been stored here on aeration ever since. Now, they can discolour a little bit over the winter in the shed, but I'd imagine it stays mostly to the surface. So.
And when did you harvest?
The first week or two in September.
Okay, and that is early, is it?
It is early, yeah. I think there would be times over the years where it could have been late October before they would have been got. But yeah, certainly early this year, and it did make a difference. Now, there's not a proven track record of selling beans into the human consumption market in Ireland
Yes.
Yes, but it is, given people's interest in other sources of protein, I think it is an opportunity.
And the idea of the local food idea and food sovereignty, I think it's a huge opportunity, but probably needs a bit of, it's a tough one for a farmer to go on as alone in this area. I think that there's a lot of additional skills required. But
I will investigate getting them cleaned and possibly brushed if maybe brushing isn't required, but certainly cleaned and remove any hulls or any little small beans that keep the sample quite clean, because I think if you have any chance of attracting interest to them, you want to have them absolutely pristine looking.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, Tommy, thanks very much, and thanks for doing this, and we'll see you in person in BioFarm.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks very much, Tommy. That was really good. They look like a clean sample in the shed. I think you said your father was on the combine. You can't take the credit for the clean sample.
I was shocked now, to be honest.
No, I think we were very lucky with the harvest date this year.
Yeah,
it was just
made things a bit easier.
Quite a bit earlier than normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Good few questions in. Stick your hand up, and Niamh will get you with the mic if you're here in person. What's this first question? Yeah, great to see farmer-led research into companion crops in real-world conditions. Do you establish companion crops with the one pass or two separate passes at different seeding depths?
It's all done with the no-till drill, so we haven't established any crop, cash crop or cover crop with anything except the no-till drill now for probably 6 seasons. Yeah,
okay, very good. How does one become a base member? Someone is asking. That's good to hear. They have a website anyway, so you can log on to that, and there's plenty of social media as well. There's a Twitter and a Facebook, isn't there, Tommy?
Yeah, and there is I think Norman used to deal with the memberships, one of the speakers earlier, but I think that's passed on to somebody else in the group now.
Okay, very good. Anyone from the floor with a question for Tommy? You can think about it there. I have a question. The milling wheat, you said you grew milling wheat.
Yeah.
And that went to a mill here in Ireland, did it?
I'm still holding off on some of it because a friend of mine, Turlough Keenan, is actually building a mill at the minute. So it was through him, some of the heritage varieties we grew for him over the years, just to grow some plots out, to multiply them up. And so I'm hoping that he'll have his mill up and running shortly, because we have a big storage problem with milling wheat at the minute, and Dad's given out to me. He wants rid of it. He said it's going to end up in the feed pile if I'm not careful.
Yeah, and Turlough's been doing work on that for a good while. And as a young farmer, Tommy, how important is it to have a premium crop? I know the milling wheat it's not a premium crop as such yet, because you have to have the market for it. But for you to stay in the industry, how important is it to see those things coming along?
Well, I think it's huge. I think over the last few years we were going down on a path to nothing. I think, in my opinion, I couldn't see a future in it. And now, once I went down this route, and the last few years of the regenerative conversion, I've gotten a lot more excited, and I even think Dad has too. I think he has certainly moved along incredibly for somebody who grew up with something so different, and we're focused on yield and focused on in some ways he probably questioned a lot why we were, if it wasn't broken, why would we fix it? But I could see that there was things were getting harder to do, inputs were getting more expensive, and that's only become more of a problem. And certainly for my future in farming, I think if I hadn't gone this way, I would really be concerned about where the future would lie.
Yeah, okay. Someone's wondering where the beans are. They're still in the shed, are they?
Yeah,
Or
whatever
the
beans are
distant
left, I think I might try and see what I can do with them. But yeah, for the minute, they're still there, yeah.
Good to be experimenting with it. Sean, have you any questions?
Yeah, I've two. Is in the shed, how long will they last, the beans like that, if you left them the way we've seen them there in the video?
Well, they're not dried, but they are on underfloor aeration. So that is one thing that, again, thanks to my dad, about 30 years ago, he put in underfloor aeration, and it's been a huge positive, I think. And anybody in the arable business should seriously consider home storing. And it isn't without its own issues. And you do have to know, as he says, I tend to forget about the crop as soon as it goes into the yard, and he handles it. So that's something I definitely need to take more care on. But on the underfloor fans, we get it on the cold evenings and get the temperature down below 3 or 4 degrees, and then they can hold for a long time at that. As I said though, in the human consumption market, there could be a little bit of discoloration on the top of the pile, but I think that would be limited to the surface only. So.
And what I noticed about yours, there didn't seem to be any marks, and you're going to always get the odd broken one, but was that down to your dad on the combine, or was it that because of it's coming off a system where cover crops had been in, that you had reduced your pest and disease issue?
I would say that has a lot to do with it, yeah. The combine I don't think would have had much influence, but I think, yeah, having a healthier plant, healthier soil tends to lead to healthier crops in general and healthier output. So I have in the past seen where we've had maybe nematode or bean weevil damage in the store. You know, you could see it in the beans that were in the store. So not sure what exactly causes it, but this year was certainly a very nice.
Yeah, they were spotlessly clean, I have to say.
It's great that we have support like from government. There's a payment there. You know, if something goes badly wrong with beans, there is a little bit of support there. But I suppose with all the talk about increasing in tillage, we need an investment in processing facilities for those crops and for food crops as well. So I think we're at the end of our questions. We've no one from the audience. So Tommy, stay there. We might wrap up for the day. Is there anything in particular stood out for you?
I was really fascinated. I obviously know a lot of the speakers today, but even some of the external speakers, I thought it was fantastic information on the multi-species from, was it Ian, I think, sorry.
Yeah.
And then obviously I know some of the guys like Norman and Nigel, of course, too. So it was just fantastic to see what all they're getting up to.
Yeah.
I think I've learned a lot, even though I know the guys and I know their farms, but it's still always good to get an opportunity to see a presentation on it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Ian would be delighted to see that good crop on your farm, the IC Ray. Sean, what stood out for you? Or I know a lot stood out, but one or two things.
I have to say, I thought Nigel's presentation, for all his moaning that everybody stole his slides, I thought was excellent. I thought it's quite interesting to see a progression. There was a complaint in from the hotel there for Porridge and Levy to take his feet down off the chairs, but that's fine. He's done it. He's just done it now. Again, I thought, you know, sometimes we do need that reinforcement. And when we started, I think with BioFarm originally, we were fairly strongly focused on international experts coming in, giving this. But I think this year's quite interesting because we've far more examples of farmers on the ground. We'll see more of this tomorrow, and I suppose tomorrow's kind of a dairy day, but all the way along, it's kind of like we're getting further into this. I thought David's results, you know, I would have spoken as David, as he's nipped out for a minute, but David would have done a good bit of, you know, he'd be ringing you up and you'd have your 2 to 4 hours with him, for those of us that know that. And there would have been this thing, we're just not getting it. But you kind of see now in year 3, year 4, where he's starting to see that progress that they've ironed out. And that would never have happened without that Danu project, because it's got that over. So I think, you know, it's kind of, we started off at a very, very small level, and that ripple is coming out. And then I think for me yesterday, probably David Johnson stuff, I just thought that it's, you know, this is something that we're going to have to look at. We're going to have to look at. And then biodynamics, you know, in one way biodynamics was probably, everybody would have kind of said it, dissed it as not the stuff. But Trevor has shown how this is a commercial reality. And you could see it in his, we didn't have any crops or cereals to look at, but you could see it definitely in his veg. You know, there's absolutely no doubt about that. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we have to get to a situation from a farming perspective that the farmer makes the money. You know, Gabe Brown said he has no huge interest in yield. It's about profit at the farm level. And maybe we've gone far too far away from that, so we have to think about that, Yield is a bit of an ego at times.
Yeah, like if you're making money and you're not able to boast about a good yield at the pub. But anyway, the people who boast about the good yield, we never see the docket.
No, and absolutely. And just on tomorrow, I think, you know, there's a couple of really good things coming up tomorrow. I think James Humphreys, for those who are interested in clover, some of the stuff this man has done over 12 years in research on that's both for an organic and a conventional system and getting clover to the level he's got it at. And, you know, we talk, today was quite a bit about arable intelligence and stuff like that. But I think James told me before, I think it's maybe a once in 10-year reseed. And he's ruled out from in a commercial dairy herd, being able to rule out nitrogen. That's phenomenal. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think James Foley then is going to come and look at his transition on with multi-species. So a lot of really good stuff. And, you know, Ned O'Brien is going to come along and then talk about his starting point. And I spent some great time with Ned on the last day, so it was really interesting. So yeah, tomorrow's going to be another great day. Yeah, it is. And strong focus there on clover, conventional and organic and everything. Yeah. It goes across all sectors. And I've been down in Solihull with James, and he takes groups, you know, and I think people who see James tomorrow will be dying to get down to Solihull after it. No, thanks very much, Sean. And look, thanks to Tommy. We'll give the lads a round of applause, I think.